chapter 5. Find there our text for today. Matthew chapter 5, verse 5. Again, we're continuing to look at the Beatitudes, what I've called the Christian Manifesto, the marching orders for those who would love God and follow His way. Matthew 5:5 says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." Intellectuals have long thought that religion is bad for society. Strange to think that they would believe that religion, as much good as it does for our world and in our world, there are, because of religious zealots, we see it in our own time, there are a great number of evils that come in the name of religion. One of the main reasons, though, that intellectuals in particular think religion is bad is because of our verse for today. Blessed are the meek. Perhaps it is one of the most contentious ideas of the latter half of the 19th century. In the minds of many intellectuals of the day, religion satisfied the very people who were oppressed by power and money. These budding communists and socialists very much believed the theories of Darwin and his contemporaries. Mankind, they said, is not a special creation in the world. We are only a small part of the visible order of life. And if it is true that we are just part of the world and no more, then we have no inheritance beyond this life. They are in fact like some of the Jews of Jesus' day, the days of Paul, who denied that there was any life after death, that there was a resurrection of the dead. Hence the goal of life, if this is all that there is to life, the goal of life is to accomplish that all that one can during this life, for once it ends, our opportunity to change and transform and to make a difference also ends. Religion, they say, like the government, like the state, like society, is created by people for people. It is both the source of much suffering and it is also the protest against the suffering that we endure. It is, they say, an escape for those who cannot bear this existence. To the poor, it encourages suffering as a means to some realization of wealth in a life that could come after death. To the wealthy, it encourages charity so that they feel better about themselves and so that they might earn a spot in the life after. And it eases their conscience for having been born with special faculties or into wealth itself. Religion, they say, gives each person a delusion of grandeur for the life beyond. And so instead of seeking to change their fate and overcome the obstacles of this life, individuals who are sold into religion are lulled into a state of contentment. Everything's okay. There's no reason to try and change my lot in life because in the next life, I'll have my reward. Religion keeps people from seeking to change and transform the status quo. And it is like a drug, which helps people feel good about the really pitiful state and condition of their own lives. That's what the intellectuals, 150 years ago, That's what the intellectuals thought 75 years ago. That's what the intellectuals think today. That's why religion is persecuted. Because it keeps people from changing society and culture. It seems odd that Jesus would declare that the meek will inherit the earth. You and I look around the world and we see that the powerful are the ones who seem to be in control. You know, there are competing virtues in this life. The first one says that we should grab for all the gusto we can get. We should strive for all the wealth and power and position to which we are entitled as human beings. This is the philosophy of those who lend money to the poor at exorbitant interest rates. These are the ideas of those who grab power over nations and strive to exterminate anyone who would stand in their way. This world, our culture, nearly every culture, has tried to overturn and manipulate the people around them. It was true in the ancient world when nation rose up against nation. It's true in the modern world when nation rises up against nation. It was true in the Middle Ages, in the medieval days, when castle rose up against castle. And yet the ones who suffered most were the serfs, those who tilled the land and grew crops. It was true for Genghis Khan when he traveled all the way from Mongolia, Western China, across Asia and into Europe and attacked Rome. He was mad after power. It was true for Alexander when he exported war from Greece to Babylon. It was true in Europe when Hitler sought domination and subjugation of the inferior races of people. And it remains true today when one corrupt leader deposes another corrupt leader. And it remains true today when the political machines try to chew one another up and spit them out. It's all about power. But this too is Darwin's idea. It is the survival of the fittest. It is might makes right. They used to say that in the 60s when there was a social uprising in our country. But this thought has been around for as long as one person in the world coveted what was possessed by another. We need only look at the Bible for a clarification of this. In 1 Kings chapter 21, King Ahab wanted to buy the vineyard of Naboth, and he would not sell it to him. Naboth said, "There are plenty of vineyards. Go buy one of those." King Ahab said, "I want yours." Naboth said, "You can't have it." And so the king, using his power, bribed a couple of men. All they needed were 2 or 3 witnesses to say that Naboth had defiled God, had taken the name of the Lord in vain, and they took him out and stoned him. And Ahab, by power, took the vineyard. But he never got to enjoy it. God came in his vengeance. Jesus clearly states, I think, that those who desire power in this life are headed for the ultimate disaster and destruction. And the inverse of those who desire power are the meek. This word implies a mildness of disposition, a gentleness of spirit. It's the opposite of wielding power for earthly gain. It requires that we endure the evil that is committed against us, knowing that if our life here ends, we are ushered into that higher ground, that perfect peace and contentment in the presence of God. Now, Jesus taught his disciples that they would be hauled into court on account of his name. He warned them of the persecution that was coming against them. He predicted that they would be killed because of him and for their belief in him. He never told his disciples that they would wield political power. He never told his disciples that war was ever going to end. In fact, he predicted it would continue and worsen as the time of the end came. He never told his disciples that the whole world would come to peace and serenity because of the power and influence of Christians. And yet we all wish that it would. Christians need to learn the greater benefits of meekness. Jesus said, the meek will inherit the earth. But then, Pastor, if the meek aren't going to inherit the power and the authority and the kingdoms of this world, if Christians are not predicted to be ruling over others, what does it mean when Jesus said that the meek would inherit the earth? It didn't mean that we would rise to power, that we would conquer the powerful, that we would overthrow unrighteousness. Paul, who was harshly persecuted by both Jews and Romans, wrote to Timothy, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2, that prayers should be offered for kings and for all those in authority. What a wonderful thing for Paul to pray. And when we gather and when you pray at home, I hope you pray for kings and for those in authority. Sometimes we're tempted to pray that they would be overthrown. Sometimes we're tempted to pray that their reign and rule would continue because they've been good. That's not why Paul wanted Timothy to pray for them. If you look at the next verse, the purpose of praying for those in authority says that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. Paul was encouraging Timothy and is encouraging us, pray for the rulers and authorities that they would leave us alone and let us worship God. Let us be godly and be holy without trying to interfere with us. This is the perfect example of weakness. We don't have to flash our credentials for the world to see. We don't have to stand on the street corners and tell them they're going to hell. Most of them already know it. But if we'll live lives of godliness and holiness in the midst of a wicked and perverse generation, they will see in us, without our having to proclaim loudly our credentials, they will see in us something different. Amen. They will notice in us a calmness and a peace in the midst of persecution. The problem, I think, of the so-called Christians in America is that they're not really very different from their unsaved contemporaries. Those who go to church and those who don't go to church look the same, act the same, talk the same, walk the same. But meekness runs alongside godliness and holiness. It is the companion of all those who truly love the Lord. We should not have to fight for our rights in the public square. Rather, we should pray for our rights of conscience and to be able to live quiet, peaceful. You don't have to shout it from the mountain if you're living in the valley. The great inheritance of the meek, then, is the earth, but it is not this earth. Even though it is currently hidden from us, there is a greater reality. John saw the fulfillment of it as he came to the conclusion of the vision, the revelation that was given to him on the Isle of Patmos. In Revelation chapter 21, he writes these words, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Now the dwelling of God is with men, and He will live with them. They will be His people, and He will be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain. For the old order of things has passed away.' He who is seated on the throne said, 'I am making everything new.' And then He said, 'Write this down. For these words are trustworthy and true.'" Amen. The inheritance of the meek is not this world. This world is destined for destruction. This world has a fatal flaw. Sin has cursed it. It must be cleansed. It must be cleaned. God has already prepared the inheritance for us. God has already prepared the place. God has already chosen the time. In the new world, there is a new order. Might will no longer make right. Meekness will rule. Those who have been willing to demonstrate godly meekness in this world will be invited to the next world. And the angel says, "It is trustworthy and true." Jesus Himself should be our role model in this. The prophet Isaiah told us 700 years before Jesus arrived, before He came, that He was going to be a different kind of leader. In Isaiah chapter 53, he wrote to us and said, "He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to Him. Nothing in His appearance that we should desire Him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering. And like one from whom men hide their faces, He was despised, and we esteemed Him not." Jesus embodied meekness. Even when He was in the garden praying, "Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from my lips." And in meekness He said, "Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done." Amen. God is looking for a people to call His own. He is searching for those who are meek, those who are humble of heart, those who are gentle and unassuming. These are the people who will inherit more than this earth could ever offer. These are the ones who will inherit the remodeled, restored perfection of heaven and earth. They will also inherit the kingdom of God. They will be called the bride of Christ. They will rule with Him and reign with Him. They are called the overcomers, not because they have defeated the earthly enemies, but because they have defeated enemy of God with the help of God.
Amen.
And they have found holiness. What is it that you desire out of life? Are you looking to make a name for yourself? Are you trying to have your 15 minutes of fame? Do you seek to amass great wealth and die rich? Do you desire to overthrow the kingdoms of this world and rule with your own iron fist? Or are you seeking to be holy? Are you praying today that you can live out your life in holiness and godliness in all means? Listen, not all goals are equal. Not every vanity of our heart is profitable. We might be able to start a crusade and recapture the holiness of the land, but at what price? And what price of life and limb? And what price to our self-control? And what price to the call upon those who claim the name of Jesus and are blessed in meekness? Oh God, today, my prayer for you, my prayer for me, is that we be given the opportunity to live those quiet lives.
Amen.
That we be given the opportunity to live in holiness, to exemplify godliness, not so that we can demonstrate to the world how great we are, but so we can demonstrate to God how great He is.
Amen.
We pray for meekness, knowing that we may never ascend to power in this life, and that God will give us the keys to the kingdom that is coming, to the life everlasting that is coming, and that we will gladly bow the knee and confess with our